It took me over 15 years to go from a slacker C student to an 8-figure entrepreneur. I wish I've done things differently to really speed up my results. Now, since that time, I purchased hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate. I also took a company from $0 to $20 million in revenue in around 4 years. I've also helped hundreds of entrepreneurs achieve financial freedom, and I've learned a lot along the way. So in order to save you years of pain and hardship, I'm going to share with you the 5 laws you absolutely have to follow if you want to succeed in the money-making game. So without further ado, here are the 5 laws. Rule number 1, control the weather. If you want to make a lot of money, you've got to take extreme ownership over everything around you, even things most people would say are totally out of your control. I'll give you an example. In the last couple of decades, Dubai has experienced insane growth, growing from a city that looks like this in the 1950s to a city that looks like this in 2025. And because of their rapid expansion, they've had an incredible increase in their demand for water. The only problem is Dubai is located in one of the driest and hottest climates on Earth. So what do? Throw up their hands and say,
we had a good thing going, but what are we gonna do? Go outside and do a rain dance and try to make it rain?
Well, as some of you may know, that's kind of what they did. Due to a revolutionary cloud seeding program, they've been able to increase their rainfall in Dubai by up to 35%, which has created enough water for them to sustain their incredible growth, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. This is a metaphor for how you should view problems in your business and in your life. If you want results that no one else is getting, you've got to view everything as being in your control and view blaming forces outside of your control as totally against who you are to your core. Bottom line, if you want to see success, you have to make it rain. Emphasis on the make it part. Law number 2, FU discipline. Okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Whenever I hear someone say,
Hey, this is a rule that you absolutely have to live by,
my gut instinct is to be like, no, that's not gonna work for me. And if this sounds like you, then you really need to hear this. So in the world of making money in business, you can take pretty much every mantra of old. Go to college, invest in your 401k, wait until you're retired to take time off. You can just take them and throw them out. But you probably already know that. So let me ask you, if you do take those mantras and throw them out, what are you going to replace them with? The reason that things like this are repeated over and over again is that they're rules of thumb. And generally speaking, if you follow the rules, you'll have an okay life. But you're not watching this right now because you want an okay life. You're watching this right now because you want a life that's free and fulfilling. And you probably want some FU money to pay for it all, right? Well, that's exactly what I wanted, which is why I started my company right after college. But what happened is that I went from having a schedule that was filled with classes to being able to wake up and literally do whatever I wanted. And all of a sudden, I had no guardrails to ensure I kept moving forward. So let me ask you, if you decide to start your own company, what time are you going to show up to work? What time are you going to get things done that you don't want to get done? What happens if you need to do something and it doesn't get done at all? I mean, the answers to these questions matter. This is why the only way to achieve real success is to have the freedom to do anything you want, but the discipline to create a plan and stick to it. Specifically, the discipline to avoid distractions and commit to showing up and doing the work when no one else is watching. In fact, the more freedom that you want, the more discipline that you'll have to curate. Here's something that will sum it up. To get FU money, you have to have FU discipline. Think of this as the true north. Law number 3, become an evangelist. Now, throughout my career, I've sold over $100 million of private equity investments, and I also have a sales team, and I've seen people come in and absolutely crush it. I've also seen people that can't even make it more than a couple weeks. And the key difference all comes down to evangelism. Let me explain. In 2006, I worked for one of the very few jobs I ever had, which was a network marketing company called Cutco that sells high quality knives. Now, even though I didn't have any sales training, I was able to lead the branch in sales, and I credit this due to one main reason. I became an evangelist for the product. I actually bought a set of the knives, and I absolutely loved them. And after I would sell people knives, I would check on them after the fact, and they would always be overwhelmed with how awesome they were. Basically, they would shift people's perspective on what it meant to have a nice set of knives. If you were to strap me down to a lie detector and ask me point blank period, do you believe that Cutco makes the best knives on the planet? I would tell you 100% without a doubt, they do. This is the kind of evangelism you want to have about your business and in your life. If you want to have success, find a product or service that you feel is head and shoulders above everyone else and just simply share your enthusiasm for the product. Dive deep into the case studies and success stories of the customers. These should be plastered all over where you work, constantly reminding you that you're doing something good for your clients. Now, if you feel like what you're currently working on doesn't really inspire that level of enthusiasm, maybe you should find a new product or service. Or if you aspire to be an entrepreneur, maybe you should create your own. Like I said, I figured this out quite a while ago, and because of that, we create systems to encourage enthusiasm and evangelism within our business. As an example, we created a process where when one of our clients has a success story, we interview them about their success. Then we send that interview to the salesperson that brought them on board, and we ensure they listen to it. This creates a cycle of evangelism that's constantly rippling through our company, and it makes a big impact to the bottom line. Law number 4, break the ceiling you can't see. Here's a graph showing something I call the new opportunity ceiling. Here's you starting as a beginner. You get inspired to take on a new opportunity, start to take some action, start to see results, but eventually you hit some big headwinds and start to look around for an easier path. Now, once things get really tough, you actually find a new opportunity that looks way easier, and you think, oh, wow, that's the reason I'm not having success. I'm going after the wrong opportunity. Now, eventually, you switch to the new opportunity and the cycle starts again. You start as a beginner, filled with enthusiasm, you start taking action, start to see some results, but then you hit some headwinds and you start to look around for an easier path. Here's the thing, you're creating a ceiling that you can't see, bouncing from opportunity to opportunity. The truth is, you just can't achieve mastery when you're bouncing around like this, going from beginner to intermediate back to beginner again. Now, I've been through this more times than I want to admit, but here's what I've learned after 15 years of banging my head against the wall. Almost all of the breakthroughs that you want aren't going to come from finding some new golden ticket that allows you to make millions of dollars that no one else has seen. The real breakthroughs come from sticking with it when it gets hard. See, because it's actually hard to stick it out when it gets hard, most people get stuck in this vicious cycle of hitting the ceiling, bailing, then starting over again. But if you really want to have a breakthrough, you have to do the one thing that almost no one is willing to do, which is dive headfirst into the hard work that's going to make everyone else bail. This creates the breakthrough that allows you to have success up into this range. And guess what? Once you do that, it's not smooth sailing up and to the right. You'll almost certainly be met with even bigger and bigger challenges, but then of course you'll be faced with the same question. Do you want to stop and bail and settle for being stuck again? Or do you want to force yourself through those challenges so you can have another even bigger breakthrough? Which is a great tie into number 5, which is law number 5, how to beat 99% of the competition. Let me ask you, have you ever noticed that pretty much everyone has a podcast these days? Yeah, I noticed it too. But what you might not know is that despite it being very low cost, almost everyone quits way before they could possibly see any results. According to multiple sources, 90% of podcast hosts stop after producing just 3 episodes. And of the people that are left, another 90% quit before getting to episode 20. I'll say it another way. To beat out 99% of the competition and secure yourself as a top 1% podcast producer in the world, all you have to do is produce 21 episodes. But that's way easier said than done. Usually, the reason people quit in business is that they start to believe that their problems, their trials, their tribulations are so challenging that it's actually a sign that they're just not cut out for it. AKA, when they get started with a new opportunity, they get punched in the face so many times that eventually they think, either I have the worst luck in the world or I'm just not built for this. Either way, I'm done. So here's my guidance, especially if you're just getting started. Essentially, you have to refuse to accept defeat. You have to realize that it's going to be way harder and way more work than you would have thought. So hard, in fact, that you'll actually think it's a sign that you should quit. But once you have that feeling, just know that's the moment when most people quit. That's the 20th podcast episode. And all you have to do is make one more and you beat them. Then one more and one more. And this is coming from someone who's done over 1,000 podcast episodes. My podcast basically changed my life. So if I can do it, so can you. Now, these are the 5 laws I learned over the last 15 years of my career. If you want to learn more laws of the top 0.001%, click the video on your screen right now.